Hey everyone, today I'm taking a look at Cascadia, which is a 1 to 4 player board game designed by Randy Flynn and published by AEG and Flatout Games. This one takes around 30 to 45 minutes to play. So this is a pretty abstract tile placement, puzzly style game that looks like this once it's set up. I've developed a few turns in the game here just to show you how the game plays out and what your little tableau or your environment is going to look like as the game progresses. So essentially you've got these 5 different scoring cards that are displayed, and these are from 5 different categories. You've got the bears, you've got the hawks, you've got the salmon, you've got the foxes, and you've got the elk as well. So any game there's only going to be 5 of these, one of each type, but there are different ones you can choose to put out should you want to, which work in slightly different ways for a bit of variability. So let's take a look at what these do. So basically the bear card here is saying that I want to be getting 3 bears connected to each other. And if I do that, I'm going to get 10 points. The hawks want to have line of sight with one another. And the more I have of those, the more points I'm going to get. The salmon, you want to be connecting these whole kind of chains of them. And again, the more you do that, or if you get 3, 4 or 5, you're going to get the respective points here. And you've got the foxes, which wants pairs of different animals surrounding them. And again, if you have 3 different pairs, you're going to get 7 points. But if you only have 1 pair surrounding them, you're going to get 3 points. And finally, you've got the elk here, which you're trying to get in straight lines. So if you get 4 in a straight line, you're going to get 13 points. But if you only get the 2, you're going to get 5 points. So the way you're going to do that is you're going to be drafting from these 4 tiles and 4 tokens like this. And these tiles and tokens are associated with one another. So if you want to draft these ones, they have to come together as a pair, at least generally, but there are certain ways around that. So let's have a look at my little environment that I've done so far. So you can see here that I'm trying to achieve these objectives by putting these elk next to each other, trying to have the birds have line of sight with each other and create these chains of salmon. Now something that I'm also trying to do is trying to match up the terrain types. You can see here this forestry, I've tried to create the biggest chain as I can connecting with each other, because if I do, I'm going to get a point for each one in my biggest set, and if I have more than the other players, I'm going to get a bonus amount of points depending on that play count. So everyone is going to keep drafting tiles and tokens until you've placed exactly 20 of each into your environment, and then final scores are going to be calculated. So let's do a little dummy round and see how this game plays out. So if it's my turn, I'm going to have the option to choose any of these pairs, obviously with the idea of trying to increase my terrain and to get those scoring objectives from the cards themselves. So let's just say, without thinking too much, I wanted to take this one here, like this, with this bear token and this bird token. So maybe I would want to place this token on here to try and create a new set of bears, because again, I'm trying to get 3 connected with each other. And maybe I want to put this bird token somewhere where it's going to have line of sight with another bird, maybe all the way over here like so. And bearing in mind that if I ever have them right next to each other, they're not going to score. So you do want a gap between the 2, meaning that I probably want to put a moose on this one to stop me from breaking that points tally. So yeah, something you can see on these tiles is that not only have they got the terrain type on them, but they've also got the actual animals that are legal to be placed on that area. So only birds and elk can be placed on that specific tile, and only a hawk can be placed on that exact tile that I've just placed. Now when you place that token, or when you draft the token and place the tile, you can actually put the tile or the token straight onto the tile you've just placed if you want to, or of course you could put it on one that you've previously placed. Now something you can also see is that some of these tiles have this little pine cone symbol on them, and when you place a tile on one of those, you're going to get one of these pine cone tokens from the supply, and these will let you break a couple of rules. So first off, they will let you wipe the supply of tokens from the display. So let's just say I really didn't want any elk or any bears or foxes. Maybe I really wanted a bird or a hawk. I can choose to cash in one of those, wipe the tiles off and re-rack with a new fresh bunch, hoping that I'll get the animal that I want. And alternatively, they will let me break the rule of having to draft these in exact pairs. So you can actually cash in one of these pine cones to say take this fox and this tile over here, in order to, again, give you more freedom and flexibility to work towards those goals and to get more victory points. And that is essentially how the game's going to play out. You're going to keep drafting tiles and tokens until you've placed exactly 20. Then you're going to tally up all your scores based on all the criteria of the animals, all the terrain types, potentially getting those objectives if you have, the bonus if you have more or a bigger surface area than the other players, and also any spare pine cones you have are going to be worth an additional point. And that's how you play Cascadia. So let's get into my final thoughts on the game. So as a general rule, I tend to enjoy these medium, lightweight, puzzly style games. I find them engaging and I find them fun. And I also find them easy to get to the table because most people tend to enjoy these games. And I think Cascadia is an example of being a game that's going to be difficult for somebody not to find some enjoyment from. It's just a pleasant, breezy experience with some relatively meaningful decisions as you are drafting from these as well, bearing in mind that you want the terrain types to match up and expand, potentially struggle over that majority to get those extra few points, but also be working towards something and planning towards how you're going to place these animals with the idea of getting as many points as you can. And I also like the way that some of these different animals work with each other and you can combine the points you're going to get from them. For example, maybe you want to combine the foxes and the elk like I've done here. When I place this fox, I want to be surrounded by pairs, and also the elks want to go in lines. So with this one, I've kind of got the pair here and the line all working together in kind of harmony, which is cool. So I do like the way that maps out, trying to get as much points as you can with every single placement. But sometimes you're going to have to work within the confines of what you have, because there's not going to always be that ideal pairing of tiles from that, which is actually a good restriction for the game. Mechanically, this game is as simple as it gets, but I do enjoy this kind of dual drafting system. But despite that extra kind of wrinkle of kind of flair to the game, it does do a good job of just getting out your way and letting you enjoy the puzzle without any rule ambiguities or confusion. Just simply draft a pair and place them straight onto your environment. And everybody is going to understand that regardless of your experience with games, and I'm just going to understand the puzzle and just enjoy the satisfaction of trying to do your best with that puzzle. There's also a strong variation in the different animal cards that you can play with to help the game keep fresh and make you work towards new objectives each time you play. I will say that straight up, some of these objectives are a bit more straightforward than others. For example, this hawk here, very simple to understand, just have hawks in isolation. Anybody is going to understand how that works. But then sometimes these cards aren't so intuitive and just are a bit more confusing. Like this one here, where you want to have pairs of hawks and you score for the number of unique animal types between them. So again, it's going to make you take a step back and think about how that works rather than being instantly recognizable. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing, and it helps you almost pick and choose the cards you want to play with depending on who you're playing with. Maybe if you're playing with younger children, they're going to appreciate the simpler cards and how they work, but it's still going to be a decent puzzle. But if you're playing with people who are really kind of well versed in these puzzly style games and like to completely min-max every placement, then they're going to appreciate that extra complexity. The game only takes 30 to 45 minutes to play, which I think is spot on for a game like this. It does not outstay its welcome whatsoever, and it's pretty much on the money on where you want this to be. And if it went any longer, it maybe could start to detract from the enjoyment, but it gives you enough to sink your teeth into and to build a big enough environment to score enough of those cards, even multiple times. So it gives you that good balance of being able to achieve a lot, but not too much to the point where you start getting bored and losing interest. The player interaction mainly comes from the communal tile draft. So you've got that kind of passive interaction of not wanting people to take the tiles you want or the tokens you want, which is fine. There is that additional wrinkle of trying to have the biggest surface area of the different terrain types. So maybe you're keeping an eye on your opponent and want to make sure that you have the biggest forestry just to get those extra few points. But it's not a terribly interactive game, but it does enough to keep it interesting, and you're mainly going to have your head down in your own puzzle and doing your best you can without really thinking too much about your opponent. Now, that being said, the game does scale very well because you simply always just put more tiles out and everyone plays until you have 20 anyway. So as long as you can wait a couple of turns for people to draft their tile, then it's not going to take too much longer and it's not going to really change the feel of the game regardless of that player count. And going on from that as well, this game actually does work pretty well solo. I'm not a solo gamer at all, really. It's very rare that I will play a solo game, but this one does work pretty well, again, because you are having your own little thing going on here, trying to min-max each placement to get the most you can. The solo mode here works based on you drafting your tile and token and then another one basically disappearing and then refreshing. So you have that threat of tiles you might want disappearing from the row. The production of this game is pretty damn good. I'm very happy with the way the tiles look. All the terrain types are very easy to distinguish from one another. The actual tokens themselves are nice because they're these little wooden discs and they are screen printed. So they do have this kind of almost like a traditional quality to them. And I do like the actual visual style they've gone for. Rather than being cartoony or childish, they have the more kind of mature scientific style artwork, which I appreciate. The actual cards themselves are fantastic. These are a great size. You're going to be able to see what they do just at a glance because they are nice and visible. The card quality is great because these are linen finished. And as you can see, without saying, the artwork is absolutely immense. Beautiful, stunning illustrations to really just increase the luxury feel of this game. So yeah, very happy with the way the game is produced, the artwork, etc. You do come with this nice bag as well where all the little different animal tokens come in. You get like 100 of these. So yeah, there's a ton of those to play with. So yeah, very happy with the production for a pretty reasonable price tag. Okay, so let's get into my final thoughts on Cascadia. So sometimes games come along where they have this almost like a winning airtight formula where you just know they're going to be a big hit. And what I mean by that is that they are very attractive to bring in new gamers and to be inviting to new people. They are simple, they are smooth and streamlined, they have no rules ambiguities or fiddliness, but despite that, they are still pretty thinky and engaging and offer a lot of interesting decisions to make. And this one also has that additional wrinkle of having this dual draft system, so it's got a little bit of uniqueness going on as well for its benefit. And that is pretty much where I sit with this one. This is a game that I can certainly see why it has been a big hit because it's going to cater to so many different types of gamers. Now, I'll play this with my seasoned gamer friends and they'll enjoy it a lot because they'll enjoy that puzzle of trying to min-max everything. But you could also introduce this to children, you could introduce it to almost non-gamers, because you have so much kind of flexibility on the setup you want to do, and everyone is going to understand how to play the game, which I think is an absolute triumph. Now, that being said, games like this, although I can't really fault it really, games like this are never going to be my absolute favourite or my pinnacle of my best of the best games. I know I tend to like something a bit more involved, but for the right time and the right audience, this game is always going to be a big hit and it's going to be a banker for me, and it's going to sit on my shelf probably for a long time to come, and I know it's going to regularly hit the table because it's always going to be a go-to option where everyone is going to understand, and I'm pretty sure that everyone is going to enjoy it. So that's my thoughts on Cascadia really. It's certainly worthy of a shield of quality and worthy of all the success it's gained to this point. So lovely game, and I recommend it strongly. That is Cascadia.